Picture this: 3 library staff members trapped inside the South Charleston Public Library. Aaron, Toby, and Josh, each with divergent tastes, tasked with watching each other's films. Can they survive with their sanity intact? Find out on Real Opposites, a library podcast about movies.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Real Opposites. I'm Aaron,
I'm Josh.
I'm Toby.
and we're back once again to discuss our movie chosen last time. It was Josh's choice, and it was Unforgiven.
Yep. I threw Unforgiven in there because we needed a Western.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think this is only the second Western we've done.
Needed feels strong, but okay.
I think so. What was
It was only the most popular genre for, 50 years.
Right, that's true.
Yeah.
In the history of cinema. So
I can't
feel
remember
like-
what was our last Western.
that was Once Upon a Time in the
Oh,
West,
it was, yeah.
which the best Western, in my opinion, one of the best films ever made. But I chose this one because, for one thing, I feel like you would enjoy it more.
Mhm.
Like it's more modern or postmodern to a certain degree, but I don't really agree with that. I don't think it's revisionist. I think it's just a more accurate portrayal of what it would have been like.
Mm-hmm.
Clint Eastwood's introduction in this is not what you expect. He's not cool. He's not. There's no Ennio Morricone music behind him.
Mhm.
He is literally falling into pig shit.
Yeah.
At the start of the movie.
True.
That's his introduction,
Right.
and so immediately,
Can't shoot, can't ride a horse.
yeah, he can't shoot, he can't ride a horse. What would happen if, 30 years later, one of his younger characters? What's the reality of that situation?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that they're cool. The things they did were not, something to be admired.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were drunks and they were murderers and they were womanizers and they were not good people. And he can't escape his past.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And if he, I don't know how many times he does it, but if you notice, he's constantly talking about how he can't, his wife cured him
Mm-hmm.
Right.
of drinking and murdering and everything bad he ever did.
Yeah.
He keeps reiterating that, but we know it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You can still see it in his eyes. And that's where the movie ultimately ends up is he gets drunk and that comes out.
Right.
That violence comes out, and it's a violence that is not, when it finally does come out at the end after they've killed Ned.
Mm-hmm.
It's vengeance. It's not a just getting drunk and loaded and making a mess.
Right.
Just killing women and children
Right.
and just to be a terrible person.
Mhm.
He's harnessed that level of violence for something. There's retribution that is needed,
Mm-hmm.
and I think to a certain extent, that is. I mean, the whole movie is about violence and how it affects everyone,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right down from the prostitute to the sheriff, to the gunfighters, and it shows to a certain degree that character is needed.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be that level, that person who, and it's kind of like this almost mythological character where he's just this, his only real use is violence. He has no other use. He's a terrible farmer. He's a terrible father.
Mm-hmm.
He leaves his kids alone
Yeah.
to run the pig farm so he can go
And make the money.
so he can go kill some guys who cut up a woman,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
which is something he probably would have done when he was younger.
Yeah.
They talk about I forget who mentions it, that he burned a house with women and children in it.
Mm-hmm.
He was a
A horrible
Bad
person.
guy. Yeah, he was a
really
bad
terrible
guy.
person. This isn't even like Outlaw Josie Wales or anything. He's he's playing the guy that murdered Josie Wales' family at the beginning of that movie. What you get to is that he's that character is needed
Mm-hmm.
in real life and in fiction. They have no other use except for to deploy violence
Mm-hmm.
in some direction that is leaning towards a correction.
I want to hear, like, I'm curious about what Aaron thought.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we've already talked about this. I like this movie. So,
Yeah. So, I mean, westerns obviously are never my first pick. It's not that I don't enjoy them. I just have a hard time getting into them for some reason.
is it the period piece nature? of
I'm
Westerns?
I'm
Is that it's
assuming,
old-timey?
because you know the way things were is always interesting to me, and I think I've said on here before. Usually, if it's history, I want it in documentary form, but I don't know. This one, talking about it, there are definitely good things about it. I will say it was not holding my attention big time. So I had a problem with that. It didn't just like grab me and pull me in kind of thing. But there were definitely parts about it I liked. I did like Clint Eastwood's character. I liked that it was more based around these older cowboys, outlaws, whatever you want to call them, that have lived their bad lives and kind of have moved on to their current life. And it was more about them getting back into that life. I kind of liked just the storyline of it. And there was some good character development as well, which I always like. I did think there was a couple scenes. I really liked the scenes where they're just traveling to do the killing. And once it's the three of them, especially with that young kid joins them, just the banter amongst them,
It's
things like that.
It's surprisingly funny for such a downbeat movie.
The kind
I
of dark
really enjoyed the
movie.
funny
It's-
parts.
And I really feel like we don't get that a whole lot anymore. I feel like a movie's either deadly serious or it's really stupid.
Yeah,
Right.
But like even in Schindler's List, like there's moments of levity.
right.
So like if you can find some humor somewhere in the story and something like that, then every movie needs at least a couple of moments
Right.
where it's like we can humanize
Yes.
people and they can
Exactly.
make a joke or
Well, I mean, that's life, right? Like most
funny
people,
things happen.
yeah,
Right.
A lot of people cope with dark moments through
Yeah.
gallows humor is definitely a thing, and so
Yeah.
if you're dealing with the
That's
kind
how I
of
deal with the world.
serious, that's how I deal with everything. Yeah, with if you're dealing with the kind of serious horror things that they're kind of dealing with and going through, I feel like you have to have those little moments of levity.
Yeah.
I do really love kind of the mentorship they have over the young guy, which
Yeah.
ends up turning him pacifist by
Yeah.
the end, where it's like he sees the road and
Right.
I mean, that's who he's gonna end up being.
and that's not
Yeah.
who he ends up wanting to be, which I think is a really beautiful kind of turnabout there.
And you know straight away that this kid has never killed anybody.
Right.
No, he's just running his mouth.
And I think they know too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think his poor eyesight is a revelation.
Right.
But,
Yeah, for
but I do love that scene when Morgan Freeman is he's like, see that hawk up there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
like,
loved
Ain't
that.
no hawk, you can't see shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there ain't no.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I did really appreciate those moments. I think just bringing that into something like a Western, it really worked.
Well,
It does.
It did.
Well, I
And
mean, if you're out traveling for days and days, like
stuff like that's going to
you're
happen.
gonna talk and like
Exactly.
And
I just like the dynamic of them three together.
Yeah.
So I really did enjoy that. I think it's a well done movie, and like I said, plot wise and character driven, I did like that about it. I just had a hard time paying attention to it. Once again, it's probably a period piece kind of thing for me.
Well, it's a slow movie. Like
It
it's
is
not
slow.
And it is slow.
it's
So
not-
I think
it takes
the
its
two
time.
of them, just period piece and being slow, probably took me out of it. But I definitely had parts I liked. And then, of course, towards the end, when he comes back for revenge and he's like killing everybody in the building, that was fun.
all the thunder crack,
Yeah, and it's-
thunder rolling in, it's
Yeah.
so, and it's played so, usually in a Western, that scene would have been fun, and it is fun, but it's played so straight in a way that Yeah.
It's not there's not like a cool music sting when he
No.
kills
Right.
when he kills Little Bill or and I don't know if you noticed, but like pretty much
Short and violent.
what happens in that what happens in that scene is what Little Bill describes to the writer in the jail cell
Oh yeah.
about how this idea of like people quick draws and gunfighters it didn't really happen.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
the writers of the time embellished that and then movies came along and that's that's what happened.
Right.
But that's not the reality of it. And pretty much word for word what he describes like how a gunfight happens and like how if you draw too quick you're going to miss.
Right.
That's exactly what happens. Little Bill draws way too quick.
Mhm.
And everyone is just it's a mess. Everyone is fumbling and it's clumsy and
Yeah.
but I mean that especially in 1992 when for one thing there haven't been a lot of westerns.
Yeah,
Right.
in a while.
Yeah. Since you had like a revitalization in the 60s with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
And then basically it was
The spaghetti westerns.
for the next 20 years it was a western didn't get made without Clint.
Right.
Like it was at
was
least
the
in
guy.
America. Like
Oh yeah.
the spaghetti westerns were popular, but they kind of died off after a certain point, especially in America. And was really just like, you had Outlaw Josie Wales and Pale Rider, and basically it was Clint Eastwood movies.
Yeah.
So this was really, and this was actually written by David Peoples in the 70s. It was sold to Francis Ford Coppola, or he bought the rights. And eventually,
Tried to get John Malkovich to play.
yeah. And that,
like,
and basically, One from the Heart kind of ruined him financially. He threw all of his money into that movie and it flopped. So he wasn't even able to make it. And then Clint Eastwood bought it and sat on it for 10 years until the time was right. Like he was the right age. The genre was in the right spot. And honestly, I don't think that, Clint Eastwood has said this isn't why he made it, but he had had a few movies not do very well in a row. And he knew that this was the script.
This is
like
gonna
the
do
script
well.
was so good that, he didn't expect to win awards for it, but he knew he had a good, he had a good movie here.
Right.
So he chose it. I think just the perfect moment, perfect director, perfect, like it's everything just perfect. It's a perfect storm. Everything worked. And I mean, for such a kind of dour movie, it's amazing how popular it was. But I think it's just because we recognize the humanity in the characters, because we do have the little moments of levity, and because nobody is horribly black or white. Like
Right.
there's, even Little Bill,
Yeah,
Gene Hackman.
awesome.
I mean, like if you just want to hang out and have a beer with him and hear his stories all day,
Right.
be great.
Yeah.
Just don't piss him off.
Right.
Right.
But he's like that good old boy.
Yep.
And I knew a lot of these in like high school, but like very, very charismatic and like told good stories, but you
There's an
don't. There's
ego
like
there.
you don't test their ego. You don't
Right.
try to like they're very insecure.
Yes.
But even him, like where he's like building his house and all of his guys are like, he's a terrible carpenter, and like his roof's leaking, and it's like, yeah, because like he would be like he's not the sheriff that like this kind of like figure that knows everything and is,
Right.
like omnipresent in the town. Like he's
He's not your West. He's actually not. He's not your typical
he's the
Western
realistic
sheriff.
he's
but,
the
like,
realistic version of
yeah.
a sheriff from the
Exactly.
West.
Like that's the thing. When I saw this, we did a screening here with me. I ended up, I think, just being me and Annette a few years ago of this. And I hadn't seen it, and I remember how surprising it was to me because like my dad loves the Western. Like grew up on a farm riding horses. Like that's he bought 5 acres of land because he liked Western so much he had to have horses in his adulthood. Like it's just how my dad, like know. So that they were a big part of like my life growing up. I've seen a ton of them. And this like just the the brevity of the violence, and not in the way that westerns are usually brief in terms of, like, you know what I mean? Like, they're usually brief because it's just cap guns and everyone falls down and there's no lingering moment of like, oh my god, like, you know, I'm
people
dying,
screaming in
people
agony.
screaming in agony.
Yeah.
Like, that was so surprising, and I'm sure for the audience in '92 seeing this a western done this way probably for the first time, that was shocking and really I think also really needed, because like this myth of like, you know, I know people know the West isn't bloodless, but like when given the westerns that we've had, the stories that we've told ourselves, it's, I mean, like, you know, people played cowboys and Indians like it was fun, and it's like, no, it's actually like there's a pretty bloody pretty bloody history there that we just, you know, cover with a couple of cap guns and kind of push under the rug. And so seeing this kind of laid out this way was awesome. I also really love the subversion of like the prostitutes in this. That is what women in the West would have had to have been. Whereas in most westerns, they're just that you get that like hooker with a heart of gold like story over and over again, where it's like they just want out of the life. And it's like, no, this is the only way you can make money as a woman. And
I mean, like
that was your choice.
Frances Fisher, Alice, like kind of the lead prostitute. Like she's just as bad as a little Bill. Like she's just she's kill him, murder him. Like
she's
we'll
bitter,
like,
she's mad, which makes sense.
No, it does, and she at least has a reason to be.
Yeah,
you know,
but she has that violence as well.
Yeah, and I mean it's
you have to be hard to live that life,
right?
And they're not like glamorized. They don't have like perfect hair, and you know,
right?
Yeah.
And I mean the way the movie starts is, I mean, imagine walking into the theater in '92 and seeing a new Clint Eastwood movie, and you're like, what the hell is this?
What's happening?
Right?
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
And then I love this part. I like to imagine I'm in the movie theater opening day, and there's a shot. First of all, I just love the way the movie's shot. It's very low light. It looks like how it would look.
Yeah. Very real.
Natural
looking.
light. And there's a shot of who we don't know, but if you kind of squint your eyes, you're like, is that Clint Eastwood? But it's you see who we later will know is Skinny, the owner of the bar. But if he's kind of covered in darkness, and he points a gun at the guy who is cutting up the prostitute, but he has like the sharp features of Clint Eastwood, and you're like, is that Clint Eastwood? It's like, nope.
I did that exact thing.
Yeah. I've always liked to just think of that. I was like, that's a really clever subversion of what you're expecting, because you're expecting Clint Eastwood to come in and be like, hey, partner, you know, what are you doing?
Get your hands off the girl.
And I definitely did. I was like, oh.
And then you're like, oh, that's not Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
That's just this really scuzzy bar owner.
Right.
And, you know, owner of a brothel that is, you know, just as terrible as everyone else. But I mean, there's just like everyone's a reflection of some level or of violence and how they utilize it to get what they want.
Yeah.
Well, it's the cycle. Every death has a consequence in this.
Yeah,
like every act of violence has something that comes out of it, and
like the violence is like you feel it. Like when the kid they finally catch up to the guy, and he kills him at the on the shitter.
Yeah.
And he's like begging for his life, and the kid does it, and his breakdown in the next scene is heartbreaking. You know, and like he'll never not see that guy's face.
Right.
You know, and it's great that the Eastwood director doesn't show like what happened. He doesn't show like the bullet hit. He just shows, because the focus the focus is the kid.
Yeah.
Right.
It's him pulling the trigger.
Right.
It's not the blood.
It's not about that. Yeah.
And what we imagine, like if he shot him in the face, what that looks like, it's so much worse than what he can show. And it's just the kind of just the way Clint's like the straightforward direction. It's very like thoughtful but understated. It's not in your face. It's just he has a way where it's just like these invisible edits,
Mhm.
and just the flow of the film. You just get wrapped up in it. Like I don't think about, oh, that's a really cool music sting, or that's it's different from like a Sergio Leone.
I like
this
his
is-
like multifaceted. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say this is one of those kind of movies where even though when I first finished it, I was like, oh well, another movie I don't like. But it's one of those movies that you sit and think about the way it was shot, the way it's done, the way the story is told, and it almost becomes better when you think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, if you're into it while you're watching it, you see that. But I have noticed, like, had we recorded last week, my opinion would have been different.
Oh, okay.
I think. Just because I've had time to like sit on this movie and really think about it, and think about the different things we've talked about, like how the violence it shows. It's realistic. It's more how it would actually be. There's consequences. There's actions and reactions, and the way the characters develop through the movie. I feel like it's something. It was very well done, and deserves all the acclaim it's gotten. And I don't know. It's just one of those. I would almost, even though it's a Western, almost go back and watch this one again.
Oh, cool.
Just because of the way I've sat and thought about it.
I think knowing where it sits also and it does help. And hopefully, if you've seen this movie and you're not sure if you like it or talking about it, I think it does help to understand where Unforgiven is in its time.
Oh,
because
yeah.
I've known a lot of people that like Westerns that don't like this.
Right.
Because of
It's different.
it's different.
Yeah.
It's not
It's
fun.
completely
It's
unglamorous.
it's not fun in the way that other Westerns are fun. Like other Westerns are, I mean, like the spaghetti Westerns, there's something silly, campy kind of about them. And this doesn't have any of that.
Those in particular, like it's operatic.
Right, yeah.
It's just bigger than life.
And it's simple.
And I love those films.
Yeah.
I love the Sergio Leone films. That there's a lot of spaghetti westerns I love. I don't love them like more than this or vice
Right.
versa. They both have
They're
a
different
place.
thing, Yeah.
But I mean, I think it helps to appreciate this movie if like you've been watching Clint Eastwood movies for a good chunk of your life, or you have something that you're bringing to the film as well.
Right.
And I think this opened the door to see more of that. Like, I don't know if you've seen like.
I don't think you get to Deadwood without
No,
this.
you don't get Deadwood. You don't get. I really like Old Henry. I don't know if you've seen that, the Billy the Kid movie.
Yeah.
That's a spoiler, but it's a few years old. Watch it. Or like, you don't get Deadwood. You don't get these. You don't get what's the cannibal one that.
Ravenous?
No, that one was good. But no,
That's
the
one we
one
did.
with oh, his name isn't coming to me. Why?
Cannibal Western.
Yep, it's a horror movie, kinda.
I would suspect so.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Hold on.
Hope it's not a romantic film.
Bone
Bo Tomahawk. Like you don't get those. Like
Yeah.
you don't get these darker looks at like that movie has some like shocking death scenes
that
that
movie has
are
some-
really
some really-
impactful.
Some pretty explicit.
Yeah.
gore.
Yeah. And I don't think without this kind of breaking that mold a little bit, I don't think that you get the explorations of the genre that we see now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it just has like a very, because like kind of in that moment of just kind of thinking about like, well, why is the Western this way?
Right.
Is, like kind of fascinating. But no, I like this one. I think it's a very movie that absolutely deserved its acclaim.
So this like sweep everything?
No, I mean it won Best Picture, Best Director. Gene Hackman won,
Okay.
and Best Film Editing.
That.
I loved seeing our original Dumbledore, Richard Harris as English Bob,
Yeah, he's great.
who is he's your like Pecos Bill, like he is your mythical Western character, and
Yeah,
there
he's
were a
your-
lot of guys that made their living basically taking other people's stories and making it about themselves
Oh,
and
yeah.
being a good enough gunfighter to like, pull it off and not be challenged on most of it.
I love the pomp and circumstance that he brings to that role. Like he's he's like talking about how America should have a king or a queen at the start, and then by the end, after Little Bill's beat him up, he's like, and this was totally Richard Harris, as he was like, Clint, I think at the end when I'm like screaming as I'm being taken out of town, I should just switch to like a Cockney accent.
Yeah.
And he's like, go with it.
Yeah.
So
it's
he's like, oh, at the end. It's really great. I mean, you can barely understand what he's saying.
he's not.
He got no laws.
He's got like this this posh vibe the whole
Yeah.
and then like the switch that's brilliant. I love that he basically has the writer who does become like his own character, but is essentially like following him around like if we're Beauty and the Beast, that's Gaston and LeFou, like just kind of this like
did not expect Beauty and the Beast like
reference here, but like he's got this guy who's like
same movie.
You're so cool.
Yeah.
And like I feel like that's an apt
no,
comparison. Like he's a very similar like kind of role. He's this this guy who thinks he's awesome, but it turns out that when put up against like real grit, he doesn't have it. And that's like, I mean, I think that's a fun little reveal. But those guys were everywhere.
I like how quickly the writer, who I love, Saul Rubinek, who plays him, Beauchamp.
Does a great job.
He's in True Romance too, and he plays like the Joel Silver producer. He's great in that.
Yeah.
But I love how he just immediately, once he realizes that Little Bill is like kind of the real deal, he just immediately was like, "All right, I'm writing about you now."
Right. You know.
Yeah,
it's great. And those are some of my favorite scenes in the movie are the ones just with Little Bill, and he's talking like he brings Beauchamp to his house that's under construction, and the scene like in the jail where, and I love that moment where he gives him the gun and tells him to give the gun to English Bob, and we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah.
If in the jail cell,
Yeah.
and English Bob, kind of goes, doesn't take the gun, and then he unloads it, and it was full, 6 rounds, and just the regret. It's like, and it's like that's the thing is like it's not your typical Western that relies on the theatrics or the violence. It's like the characters, the writing. Like that's a little mini movie. Those scenes, they're so captivating.
I love the moments. Another like writer, like at the end when the writer's like, "I'm shot," and then he's not, and he's like, "No, you're not," and he gets up and. I forget what the line is, but Clint Eastwood says like the perfect Western line to him, and you can see his face light up like I'm using that, and then like he tries to like gravitate towards like Eastwood's character, whose name I can't.
Money.
He tries to like gravitate towards him, and Money's like, I could tell you who's like he's like, well, who was next? Like, who'd you shoot next in the fight? Because he's going through like the whole thing of the bill, and he's like, I can tell you who's last, and the guy's like, nope, I'm out, I'm good. And but I do love like the moment where his like eyes just like he hears that line, and like you could see it like the wheels turn in his brain, like. Oh, I'm gonna use that when I write this, and like this whole, and he's just like, I got nothing for you, dude. Like, get out of here. Like
he doesn't even want to talk about it.
No,
like he there's no ego for him to stroke. Like he knows he's a terrible person, and this is his lot in life. And he's like, I mean, you get to the point. I love the line where he's asking him about like who shot first and everything. Yeah. And he's like, I don't know. I've always been lucky in the order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like,
just kind of like,
it's like, damn. He is just like, he's like an angel of death. Like that's not a human being. That's just a guy who's just like,
I'm just good at this.
This is.
And I think that's why I also liked it, because it was just such a other side of this man that you see traveling. You see one side of him, and then you see that, and it's just so well done.
Well, he can't, like, he feels so out of character when he's not.
Mhm.
Like the end, like the final scene after he kills Ned and he goes back to the town and kills them all. Like that's the real guy.
Mhm.
Right.
This other guy is just his shadow. Like
Right.
it's
Right.
not he can't live that life.
Yeah.
Well, I think
He has to pay for what he's done, and even this slight retribution on the part of Ned, who is really the only good character in the movie. He doesn't
Yeah.
kill anybody. I mean, he did
Yeah.
terrible things in the past,
but
but he doesn't really want to go. He's not going to do this without William money,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and he ends up, getting killed. I mean, him and
brutally.
yeah,
Like
and
he's
I mean,
tortured to
he's
death.
whipped,
Yeah.
and tortured. I mean,
Like-
him and the prostitute that was actually cut up are the only two that
Like innocence.
that aren't really look. I mean, she doesn't even seem like she's looking for any
Right.
retribution. She's and Ned is, he's not that guy anymore.
Yeah.
You can just see it in his face and his mannerisms. Whereas, Money keeps saying, I'm not.
I'm just a feller.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my wife
No.
cured me of that and this and
Yeah.
that, and he says it like all movie, the whole
Like,
movie.
he's trying to convince himself.
Yeah,
he
can't,
is.
He can't convince himself, and it's like nobody buys it.
Right.
But I think
But it makes that ending so like, cool.
point
Yeah,
of
it
Big.
does. It really
Yeah.
does.
I think also I think and I think that is real too. People who are capable of real violence. I think people like soldiers, people who do real violent acts in their life
They don't talk about
they
it.
don't talk about it.
No, like
Right.
my grandfather,
Like-
he would not. He was in World War II. He was lost behind enemy lines 3 times,
Mhm.
and he had terrible nightmares the rest of
Right,
his
yeah.
life, and never talked about it.
Yeah.
Didn't want to. Like, there's things you see you don't want to unsee. And there's that moment where he's sick and he's having these visions
Mhm.
of, he says, like his wife, and she's all covered in worms, and
Yeah.
he's really like the weight of what he's done in his life and the
Mhm.
waste, like how much he's wasted his life and the lives he's ruined. None of that is like what you expect in a Clint Eastwood movie.
No.
Right.
And it's he really kills that scene. Like, he's so good,
Mhm.
and you really buy it. And I think, like I said, part of it is that you don't expect it, so it can feel kind of awkward at first. But watching it again over the years, like, it's really a very vulnerable scene for him.
Like people love, I think, like people in general, people love observing violence. We love a violent story. But like I think most stable, well-adjusted people don't like living violence.
No,
and
no.
it's like this, like I think this movie does a really great job of putting that into focus. Like,
Right.
these are real people that are living real violent life, and you see the different effects it takes.
Yeah,
Like,
this
Ned
is-
gets pulled back in, and he like his wife doesn't want him to go. Like, it destroys everything
Yeah.
for him. The kind of braggadocious sheriff, like, eventually gets, like, gets his due. Like, eventually
Yeah.
gets what's coming to him
Right.
for his ego. Like, there's just a lot of,
I love
you know.
his after he shot him before he finally kills him, before Money kills the Little Bill. Little Bill is saying, I don't deserve this. I was building a house.
Yeah.
And, of course, Money says, deserves got nothing to do with it.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, I think even to a certain degree that is not true, because he. I think he, like, by the end, Money's like really embraced his role as like,
Mhm.
I'm trying to right this wrong, and you deserve
Right.
this.
Right.
It just like goes beyond. It goes beyond just mere revenge.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, like, you definitely have him. The sheriff is our sheriff of, not like, he is the law, but he's the law. He's not good.
He's the good old boy that
he's-
you give a little bit of power to.
Yeah,
You
he is just
Oh, yeah.
the law. Like, he's, and I think most people, when they see that happening, don't like that. Like, I mean, that's why the sheriff of Nottingham and, like, Robin Hood has always been a bad guy, right?
Yeah,
Like, it's like, he's corrupt. He's, He abuses his power, and I think you want to root for the Eastwood character, but like this movie also makes it where you're like, I do root for him. Yet, however, like
I don't want to spend any time with him
right, yeah,
when he's like this.
yeah,
Yeah.
He is not a fun guy to hang out with.
No, like
Yeah.
this guy's not fun. Like this
I'll hang out with Little Bill and have some beer,
Right,
beer with
yeah.
him or something, but I ain't hanging out with William Money.
like money
After
is
he's had a few.
is necessary, but not fun. Whereas like Gene Hackman's character, there is something fun about him. Like
Yeah, he's very charismatic.
Yeah,
Like there's Will Money is not charismatic at all.
No.
Like, he's just stripped of any kind of like. I mean, he has some humorous moments, but they're at his expense
right. Yeah,
before he kind of makes the turn at the end. Stories, whether it be on film or on stage or in novels, like they're a way to work through our, because ultimately we like violence.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun
Oh yeah.
to see violence. I know you really enjoy violence, Aaron.
yeah.
Movie violence.
Right.
But they're a way to kind of work through that lizard brain part of us
Mm-hmm.
that in a safe environment. It's like why I like one of my favorite things is like Wes Craven would talk about why horror movies are important, and it's because you can go and you can experience these terrible things, and people are going to get killed. There's a lot of violence, gore, whatever, but you're in a safe space,
Yeah.
and you can. Ultimately, I think it makes you a more well-rounded person because you can distance yourself from like this is a story.
Right.
And I can experience fear, but then I can walk. I can
Walk
leave
away.
the theater and I go home and I sit on the couch with my cat or my dog or whatever,
Yeah.
play with my kids, do whatever you do. But I think it's just it's a necessary. Violence is a necessary, and storytelling is a necessary outlet.
Yeah.
So
I would agree.
I mean, I think there is something in us, probably the animal part of us that says this is what we should be able to like. Like you shouldn't do it, right? Because like we're evolved, right? But
Yeah.
like I think there's still the part of us that is animal that is like. Why can't someone just take, or why can't someone just like do the, and it's like being able to see it played out in a story lets us understand the consequences of those actions without
Yeah.
anyone actually doing
And
them,
kind of
which is,
vicariously live through.
right, yeah,
Right.
Like
exactly.
we kind of tick that box
Yeah.
right,
a little
yeah.
bit, so we don't actually go out and commit real violence.
Right. That's just like in a
I mean,
way.
that's the way it's been since Shakespeare. Like,
Right.
I mean, it's like,
Catharsis is a real thing.
Yeah.
People seeing sadness, seeing violence, seeing like extreme
Right.
emotion, seeing it play out is almost the same
as
as
living it.
feeling it.
but
Yeah.
I mean, I think like every once in a while you need a movie like this though that is kind of like a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
For
Right.
Like this is like you can watch your Kill Bills or whatever.
Mhm.
It's like very heightened, or like a Sergio Leone movie. But something like this is like okay, that's like closer to reality.
Right. Exactly.
So like now I can go back and I can enjoy Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's interesting. So like David Peoples, who also did, he wrote some of Blade Runner as well.
Okay.
But he wrote it in the 70s, and really he had no involvement at all with the movie until he went to go see they invited him to see a screening after the movie was done
Oh, okay.
at Warner Brothers. And so I just think of what it, and he said it was one of the most incredible moments of his career, because he pretty much just wrote it, and then that's what was on screen. Like Clint
Right.
did not deviate from the script. Pretty much every word is what's in the script. I mean, you have some like little character additions, like Richard Harris with English Bob, like changing the accent, but the words are the same. And it only adds to the script. So I mean, that would be quite an experience to be.
Oh yeah, that would be
So,
amazing.
Clint Eastwood makes your movie with Richard Harris and Gene Hackman and all these people,
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman, and then you just see it and you're like, wow,
And to watch someone
Yeah.
take what was in your head with no direction from you and to do it what you feel was justice, I think that is. I think for a writer, that's
That's
a good moment. That would be a powerful moment.
Oh, yeah.
To be able to be like, oh, I expressed myself well because they nailed exactly what I wanted.
I mean, that's one of Clint's strengths is that he notoriously he doesn't take a lot of time. He doesn't do fancy camera movements. He'll do 2 takes, 2 good takes, and then he's moving on. That's how he can shoot a movie in like a month, and then it's out. That's how he could make 2 movies a year.
He would probably be a fun director to work with because of that.
Yeah, and so I was listening to the commentary of Richard Sheckle, who's his biographer, and he's a film critic as well, and he knows Clint. He's passed away, but he knew Clint, and that's what he talks about is he casts really good actors so that they can bring like the Richard Harris moment, they can
bring their own.
Gene Hackman brought to the role, there's their personality, their inflections, and he's very open to interpretation,
Right.
And it's yeah, that'll work. We'll try it.
Yeah.
And that's a really good director, and it's how you find things.
I also like that he wrote the score, or not the score. He wrote the main theme.
The main theme. Oh, that main theme is just beautiful. He's a jazz musician, so I feel like that's almost how he directs. It's if this note's working, let's keep playing that.
Right.
And the score is very good. I did appreciate how much of the backing is just sound. It's not necessarily music, which I think really leans into the realism.
There's very little music. It's just for the biggest dramatic moments. At the end, when he's standing in the rain after he's killed all the guys, and the music really kind of swells.
Yeah,
there's music in the movie, but that's the moment. I feel like I really remember that in the opening and closing. His little
because the scenes where he's killing the guys, there's not.
No,
it's just the thunder rolling outside.
Yeah, it's just played straight. I mean, even when there's a little bit of music. I think when they're chasing the other guy into the they're the shootout.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
there's a little bit of music there, but it's not.
It's not super.
It's not in your face.
Yeah. Which just adds to the realism and the reality of what's going on.
Yeah.
It not being so overly musical. Honestly, had we recorded last week, I had a different opinion.
Yeah.
It was more
which
negative.
is kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
100% more negative.
Sometimes you need movies. You need to sit with them for a little bit.
Yeah.
And
I think
you need to see them again. Some movies, you need to see twice.
Right. And I feel like this is one of those.
Yeah.
Just because, for me, I need to get past that Western timepiece type thing, but I can feel the meat is there. Like I said, the story line and the character development that I like in movies.
Yeah,
it's there, and it's definitely well done. So
there are a lot of things I'm I initially don't love this,
right.
But if I sit with it for a little bit, I can start to appreciate or watch it a couple times. There's a few movies I watched once and was like, I hate this, and then I've watched again a few years later, and I've been like, oh, actually,
yeah. It happens.
Yeah, it does. It's happened to me often.
Yeah.
So, what I think is it's good. Maybe I was wrong about this. 5 years, 10 years later, and you're like.
So what I'm hearing is we need another Crossroads episode.
No, some.
So the
some
thing
wrongs
about
can't
that
be righted.
is that it has to have substance for that to be the case.
Britney
I think we
Spears
found all the substance that there was to mine in that movie, and it was not in a positive light towards the movie.
Okay, Tammy.
I
We'll do Tammy.
I didn't hate Crossroads, but
we do Tammy. The podcast is done.
Josh is like, I will never watch Tammy again.
I'm sorry. That episode just the hard drive failed.
We gotta find something that somebody really doesn't want to watch and dangle it like Crossroads again.
Yeah, it was good. I guess that brings us to the time that we have to
talk about our next
figure out a movie. Our incredible machine here will pick a movie. All right, let's see what we have. American Psycho.
Ooh.
Okay.
Which one of us put that in?
I think that's me.
Was that you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm actually doing this for the book movie club next month as well. So
This is one. Actually, I've been wanting to do the book of movie.
And that's why I put it in there, because I'm like, I know he's wanting to watch this.
Yeah. I'm excited. So American Psycho from 2000.
Yeah.
Based on a book.
Based on the Bret Easton Ellis novel.
No.
Yeah.
The novel is very good. I read it years
It's not
ago.
very big, is it?
I
I don't think it's.
think probably between 300 and 400 pages.
Oh,
Not
okay.
huge, but not like super short.
Right.
Kind of average, I guess.
I had one class that made me, I think, that made me really like movies in college. It was a women's and gender studies class.
Oh, okay.
Women's gender studies and media. And we watched 4 movies that semester, and this was one of them.
Because this is one of the few horror movies directed by a woman as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mary Herron.
And we watched this, Teeth, Rosemary's Baby, and the second, I did not watch it because I don't watch those.
Nightmare.
The second Nightmare. And so, like this, yes, like this is one of the movies that made me, I think, really start appreciating films. So, like, I'm
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah, this is one I've been wanting. I mean, it's just one of those that's on my list of movies I want to see eventually.
You're gonna like it.
Although I never watch movies,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I'm going to be so surprised if you don't
shocked
enjoy this movie.
If you don't
Okay.
like it,
I'm excited. Like, I'm actually excited.
yeah,
Awesome.
it's got lots of things that should tick the boxes for you.
Cool.
So,
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess join us next time as we discuss American Psycho. And until then, I'm Aaron.
I'm Josh.
I'm Toby.
And this has been The Real Opposites.